And welcome back here for the ITBBerlin Convention 2022. It's great to have you on board. Good morning, good afternoon, or maybe good evening from wherever you are joining us today. A warm welcome to all of you. We are continuing now with our topic of the hour. Carbon neutrality is not enough. And we're going to speak more about that with our guest, the Executive Director, EVORA for Travel, Delom.
Thank you, Katie. Yes, thank you, Katie, and thanks to the Resilience Council for organizing the session. Hello to all, wherever you may be.
Hello, Christian. It's so nice to meet you. I just want to give you the floor. The stage is yours.
Okay, thank you very much. We want to set the scene as to what the travel industry has done post COP26. While we see concrete actions, much more needs to be done. First, the Glasgow Declaration launched at COP26 for the industry to recognize the urgent need to accelerate climate action in tourism and reach net zero emissions before 2050. It has been signed by hundreds of travel companies, but please, we need more, but thousands are needed. Sign, please. Second, the WTTC Net Zero campaign is welcome, particularly in light with the last Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, IPCC report, which lays out the impact of the sector's greenhouse gases. Of note, was only 50 companies out of 250 are aligned with science-based target initiatives. This must change. Third, the Award for Travel Industry Sustainability Initiative took a broad look at sustainability. We accelerated the travel industry knowledge and understanding. We issued 5 urgent acts. This year, in September, we'll tackle the social component, employees, communities, and travelers. No transformation will take place without motivating employees, engaging local communities, and of course, educating travelers. Finally, COP27 underway for November in Sharm el-Sheikh in Egypt. This is an interim meeting, but the severity of the IPCC report predictions are on par with the impact and magnitude of the war in Ukraine. Both are to be addressed simultaneously, making COP27 critical. I implore you to engage, get certified, offset your carbon footprint, and understand your action is required. With that, I hand back to Katie to introduce Randy from the GSTC, who has done a great job getting travel companies certified. And his panel, of course, which will share how to engage in important actions. Thank you very much.
Very, very big thank you goes out to you. Merci bien, Christian, and I hope to see you soon again. Thank you, merci. À bientôt. We continue with the ITBBerlin Convention, ladies and gentlemen, and as mentioned, we're still going to discuss about carbon neutrality is not enough. With us is now the CEO of Global Sustainable Tourism Council, Randy Durband.
Nice to be with all of you talking about this very important topic that indeed carbon neutrality is not enough.
Hello, Randy. Yes, it's great to have you on board. Thank you so much for joining us. And I hand over the floor to you.
Thank you very much. Sorry. And I add my thanks, along with Christian, to the Resilience Council for sponsoring this session and for their great thought leadership across the industry. We're going to be with you for a very quick session with an exceptional panel covering key aspects of this topic, building upon the scene-setting comments that Christian has provided. With me are Dr. Susanne Etti, Environmental Impact Specialist at Intrepid Travel, my longtime friend Jane Ashton, Sustainability Director at easyJet and easyJet Holidays, and Céline Olesen, Corporate Partnerships Manager at Climeworks. First, very briefly, I want to mention that taking action for a sustainable world really requires a systematic approach that applies measurement and verification. Today, we're going to focus on some action aimed at removing carbon. That's removing, because reducing is not good enough. We need to move faster and more aggressively to slow down the damage. So measurement is essential, It's related to target setting and reporting. We see that ESG reporting is now widespread, which is excellent, but there's broad agreement that ESG reporting should improve in quality and should be subjected to more external verification. So taking to heart this need for action, systematic and impactful action, let's hear from our excellent panel. Susanne, please pick up from Christian's comments about where the industry is today in terms of commitments, if you would, and then building from those policies and pronouncements, where do you see strong movement happening? Your company, Intrepid, is truly a leader in the space of decarbonization. What insights can you share, please?
Thank you, Randy. So let's first, really like to speak to our session title. So why is carbon neutrality not enough? So offsetting corporate emissions with carbon offset unit is very valuable climate action to date, but it relies on emission reductions that are achieved elsewhere in compensation for business as usual. And the depth of structural change in the economy required to limit global warming to 1.5 degrees will really require everyone, and that's countries, cities, the private sector, individuals, to strengthen their action without delay. So even though offsets compensate for a company's business as usual greenhouse gas emissions, they alone do not result in these actual emission reductions for the company over time. So in line with climate projections and really that explicit warning from the scientific community to limit global warming, companies are expected to set emission reduction targets in line with climate science and achieve those emission reductions in company operations, but also the wider value chain through really meaningful actions and achievements. In 2020, Intrepid became the first global tour operator with verified science-based targets and starting the next phase of our ongoing carbon journey and providing clear targets to hold us accountable. The targets show us how much, but also how quickly we need to reduce our greenhouse gas emissions. Reduction initiatives include to transition to 100% renewable energy in our offices, reviewing flights under 1.5 hours and replace with high-speed transit where possible, but also moving to digital print, developing low-carbon, single-country and domestic products, including walking and cycling trips, as well as working collaborative with our supply chain to take action on climate change. Destinations such as Visit Valencia or Visit Scotland have been launch partners like Intrepid of the Glasgow Declaration for Climate Action. In tourism, Visit Valencia supports the global efforts to combat climate change. They have been pioneers in measuring the carbon footprint of tourist activities and working on decarbonizing tourism. They also focus on regenerating and protecting ecosystems to safeguard biodiversity and to ensure a safe food and water supply. Nature indeed is a critical ally in the fight against climate change and nature loss. Evidence shows us that strong and healthy ecosystems can help to fight climate change, as well as build resilience and help us adapt to climate impacts. It is really vital that we decarbonize our business, as well as promote and support these nature-based solutions, like the partnership with the Blue Carbon Lab, which works on a powerful climate solution that includes ecosystems such as coastal wetlands, mangroves, and seagrasses. In closing, I've authored an open source 10-step quick start guide to decarbonize your travel business. The complementary resource provides an easy to follow action plan for other tourism businesses to get started on their website.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Susanne. Intrepid is just such an amazing leader in this space. So thank you very much for sharing those excellent developments. Turning now to Jane Ashton, Sustainability Director at easyJet and easyJet Holidays. Jane, you're leading the efforts at easyJet on sustainability for two of the most consequential segments of the travel and tourism industry, aviation and hotels. Could you tell us, please, the highlights of your current movement to carbon reduction, elimination in both aviation and hospitality, and your company's approach, and where are both headed?
Thanks, Randy. Yeah, I think it's true to say that the aviation industry is massively focused on the challenges of decarbonisation, knowing that it's really critical to a future licence to operate in a low and then ultimately net zero carbon world. At easyJet, we're a low-cost airline. There's always been a forensic focus on fuel, and so by default on carbon efficiency. In fact, carbon efficiency improved by over a third in the 20-year period since 2000. And since 2019, we've been the only major European tour airline to offset the carbon emissions from all the fuel used on our flights, and also from our ground operations. So that's 100% of our Scope 1 and Scope 2 carbon footprint. And also easyJet Holidays is additionally offsetting the transfers and the hotel stays of their holidays. However, as demonstrated by the title of the session, carbon neutrality is not enough, and we've always been clear that offsetting is an interim strategy and complementary to reducing our carbon footprint. So over the last couple of years, we've been very much involved with the Science Based Target Initiative, which Susanne talked about, to develop a sector decarbonisation pathway specifically for aviation. And this transition pathway was published by the SBTi last autumn. And during COP26, we signed up to the Race to Zero, which commits us to publishing our decarbonisation pathway and our interim science-based carbon reduction targets. So that's certainly what myself and the Sustainability Department, our operational department and our strategy departments have been focused on for quite some time now. And I'm pleased to say that there's at least 10 airlines worldwide that have signed up now to setting science-based targets, and we need to see more. But there's no silver bullet to achieve this. Multiple levers need to be pulled. Firstly, there's ongoing fleet modernisation. So in our case, the A320neo family aircraft, which we're progressively integrating into our fleet, are 15% more carbon efficient than the aircraft they replace. Additional levers include ongoing operational efficiencies, particularly use of big data, and the work at EU and UK level to drive airspace modernisation. And increasingly, we'll see more use of sustainable aviation fuels and mandates to that effect too. But more radically, we're working with a whole range of partners to pioneer the development of zero carbon technologies for aviation. And a number of those partners are now confident that zero carbon hydrogen powered planes could be entering the market by 2035. So increasingly, it's looking feasible and possible that we can decarbonise, but I'd also say that technical carbon removal technologies, such as Céline will talk about, will also need to play a role in a hard-to-abate sector such as aviation. Moving on to the hospitality front, as a tour operator, easyJet Holidays is working to influence its hotel partners to reduce their carbon impact. And one key tool to do this is to include sustainability hotel certification as a contractual requirement. And we work to this end very closely with the Global Sustainable Tourism Council and endorse the certification standards that the GSTC recognises, such as Travel Life, which requires hotels to monitor and continuously demonstrate carbon reduction. And to finish, I'd just like to bring in the customer perspective, because survey after survey is showing us that public concern about climate change has escalated dramatically during the pandemic. The onus is definitely on us as travel providers to respond to their concerns today and to those of tomorrow's customers and drive carbon out of our operations so that holidays can be enjoyed into the future.
Unmute. Wow, so much. Thank you, Jane. It's really exciting. And I'm glad to hear that you're optimistic about sustainable aviation fuel is coming on, because we're all wondering, we know it's a big transition, but it's encouraging. Thank you very much. Let's turn finally to Céline Olesen with Climeworks. And your work at Climeworks is fascinating, Céline. You've been working in many sectors, but could you cite some specific examples of how your organization might work with us in the travel business? And we're intrigued by your Orca station in Iceland that's removing carbon from the air and converting it to rock using clean, natural hydrothermal energy from Iceland. Can that scale up, or does Iceland have enough space to absorb all the carbon off the planet? Céline, please, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Thank you, Randy. Hello, everyone. Yes, so for everyone who do not know Climeworks, just a few words about what we do. So we develop a direct air capture technology, which then allows us to do this whole process of removing CO2 from the air, like Randy was just explaining. So basically with our plant in Iceland, we're capturing CO2 from the air and then storing it back down on the ground. And based on that, we can provide a service for organizations, corporations to permanently remove CO2 from the air. And what we're tackling are historical and unavoidable emissions. And travel organizations are already doing a lot to reduce their emissions. They're implementing sustainable travel practices and so on. But even with the most sustainable practices in place, there will always be an unavoidable emissions footprint coming out of these travels and out of tourism in general. And this is where it becomes interesting to working with a solution like Climeworks. So we're really tackling these unavoidable emissions. So concretely, organizations can reach out to us and establish a plan of how we can capture this chunk of unavoidable emissions over the next years based on our plans currently in Iceland, but in the future also around the world. And we're actually also already partnering with organizations in the travel industry like Tomorrow's Air. So you can also contact these sorts of organizations to see how you can start to engage with carbon dioxide removal from a direct air capture plant. And Randy, you mentioned the scale up of the Orca plant and of the direct air capture technology. So direct air capture as an industry has to reach the 1 billion tons removal by 2050, and this is what we're hoping we're on the way to. With Orca, we're capturing about 4,000 tons of CO2 per year, and it's the first step of our scale-up journey. So we have the ambition to reach the 1 million tons removal by 2030. To reach that, we have a scale-up roadmap, which foresees that we'll scale this capacity of removal by a factor of 10, approximately every 2 to 3 years in these next 10 years. So it is a steep scale-up roadmap, but we have this real ambition to reach that. And Iceland is a very interesting location because we have access to clean energy and to the storage space, and we could actually store humanity's legacy emissions in Iceland. But there are also other locations around the world that we're looking at for the scale-up. And I would close with that.
Wow, it's very exciting. So great work. Thank you so much. So our time is very short. We have just in the final moments, I just want to make comment that our work at Global Sustainable Tourism Council, GSTC, 2 organizations in this panel, Intrepid and easyJet, are members. So we invite others to join us in that effort. Exciting work we're doing with Jane at easyJet. She mentioned is working with us on supply chain development, where businesses have the power through contracting to select suppliers that are certified, that are moving in the right direction. We think there's tremendous power in that model, and we invite others to join us. So we're out of time. Thank you all so much. In closing, can we just all commit to more action? Words at conferences are fabulous, but we've got to thank you all. Wonderful panel, making great action. Let's all keep it up. Thank you all so much.